If you don't know how to do the work, no tool is going to help you with that.
What are the essential elements of a product management stack?
Part of liking a product is not necessarily just what it does for you, but also the company behind it and their support. I don't believe marketing website much.
But what's changed in the stack that you see people using?
What does it make it to be successful to not just choose the right product, but also get people to adopt it?
We're product people. We could talk about this forever.
I don't like AI so much, but...
Hey, welcome to the Product Experience. I'm Lily Smith.
And I'm Randy Silver. There's only one thing that product people like more than the tools that they use to do their jobs, and that's complaining about the tools that they use to do their jobs. That's why we're talking to Moshe Mikanovsky this week. He's put together a Product Manager Toolkit designed to help teams understand what's out there and what might actually help them work together well.
Hi, Moshe. Really nice to have you on the podcast today. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you doing, Lily? Hi, Lily. Hi, Randy.
We are both good. We're both a little bit warm in our offices, but apart from that, we're very good. I'm speaking on behalf of Randy. He can speak for himself, but he's on mute. So let's just leave him there for the moment.
Well, summer is 5 days away from when we are recording this. And I also have the fan on in my office. So it's also a bit warm here, but I actually like it.
Yeah, no, it is nice. It's nice to have a change from all of that rain and cold weather.
Absolutely.
Enough about the weather. I'm so English just talking about the weather. That's terrible. Let's talk about you. So before we get stuck into our topic, it would be great if you could give us a quick intro to who you are and what your background is in product, and also what you're doing today.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Moshe Mikanovsky, and I'm from Toronto. I started my career many years ago as a software developer. For the first 20 years of my career, I was on the engineering end of things, developing mostly products for B2B enterprise products, mostly in small organizations, so startups of different sizes. And luckily enough for me, I was always quite close to the users and the customers. So I knew I had access to them. I saw how they're working. I learned how they work. And I also got requests for them. And I knew what their problems are with the products we're developing. And that led me, after 20 years, when I did a job switch, I was like researching a bit about, what is it really that I want to do? Because I was laid off twice already, and I was, let me maybe do a bit of a change. And I found out product management, and I saw that this is probably something that is close to my heart, because I always like to be that bridge between the business side and the engineering side. And I also realized I did a lot of it anyway. So I moved to product management, and that was around 14, 15 years ago. So it's been over almost 3.5 decades, my career. And so it's been quite a long time. In product management, I was also mainly in B2B, but I'm sector agnostic. So not in a specific sector. I worked in fintech. I worked in loyalty programs, tech. I worked in recruitment, in legal tech. So quite a few of them. In the past couple of years, I did another shift in my career, still in product management, but more into education and consulting. So I'm doing coaching to startup founders through my company called Products for Good. That my vision there is to help founders to really get help from people that have done it in the industry, and not making mistakes that a lot of founders do when they don't have this product experience. I'm also teaching design thinking at a university here in Toronto, and working with a few clients in product management, as well as podcasting. So I have a couple of podcasts. One of them is called Product for Product, and it's about the products that product people like to use.
And that's a really nice segue into our topic. And also, can I just say, you definitely don't look like you've had 3.5 decades of experience working. So,
thank you.
Well
I appreciate that. I won't tell you how old my kids are, because that will also be a telltale. But in the past in my career, because I don't look that old, some people also didn't take me seriously. So hopefully when I tell them, they believe me that I have actually done all of those things I'm saying that I've done.
Yeah, then they'll be asking, what's your secret? But enough about your secret of fine aging.
It's a different show. It's a different show, yes.
It is a different show. So you mentioned there that you do a podcast, Product for Product, helping people and kind of assisting people in understanding which product tools are right for their business. I sort of love this topic. Like, I love having discussions about tools and challenging like what we're using and how we're using it and finding ways to improve ways of working and things like that. But I don't think it's everyone's favorite subject. Why do so many people have challenges with choosing the tools for themselves in their business? And what is it that gets people so stuck?
Yeah, so it's a really good question because picking products and also choosing product, it's not just the one of those things that people really enjoy doing. It's not their main job to, choose which products they're going to use. Their main job, as product people, is to build products that people love, right? So that's probably part of it, that they don't put the right effort into it. The second thing is also people usually will take the things that are either someone recommend to them or will be the best price or will be something that they feel will work, but eventually at the end of the day, it doesn't really fit very well their needs. And I feel that people are doing too many shortcuts when they choose the right tools, but those shortcuts are not necessarily, it doesn't mean that it takes forever to choose tools. It just means that they're not looking at the right places. Whether it is price, we know price is usually the main reasons why sometimes we invent in something, sometimes we don't invest in that. So if we don't have the budget, then of course it's a big problem if we want the best of the best. But there are some alternatives, and these days more than ever. When I started looking into products for product managers, as a product manager myself, starting 14, 15 years ago, there wasn't much there. And when I saw some of those products that came out after I started, I was like, oh, wow, this is amazing. This could do this for me. This could do that for me. And I didn't have much choices back then. These days, there was so much competition in this space that there are many, many choices about for each one of the categories in the tools that we're using, what to use. So I probably gave a long answer to because there are many reasons why it happens.
I want to ask you about those categories before we go into how to choose things or what are some of the coolest tools you're seeing people excited about and that are really working for people these days. I'm curious, taking a step back and thinking about this, what are the essential elements of a product management stack? What are the things you should be thinking about before you either go? I mean, obviously the answer is going to be whatever solves the problems that you have, but what is you've got a broader range to look at. What are the types of things that people should be considering?
Yeah, and you're right. The answer is it really depends, and whatever the problem is. But I will get in a second to more specifics. I do still want to say on that topic that treat your problem in the processes that you work, in the way you work, the same way that you treat the problems when you develop a product. So when you build a product, you want to know what is the real problem you want to solve. And based on identifying the real problem, you will understand the user journeys, you will understand the ecosystem they work in, you will understand their persona, what they want, what they need, their job to be done, et cetera, et cetera. And you will try to build a solution that take all of those into consideration. So the same thing, when you choose products for your work as a product manager, see what are the problems that you have, the ecosystem you are in, so the other people that you're dealing with, the other systems you already have in place, or maybe you need to replace them, whatever it is, the context you're in, etc., and only then really make those decisions. Because, and it goes back to the previous question, that we sometimes silo this problem into different niches, and we pick up maybe specific solutions for that, but then things don't work together with each other, et cetera, et cetera. So now that I said all of that, with the type of products that product people are using, it really goes into the process of how do you even think about the problem of the product? How do you ideate? How do you discover? How do you do a strategy? And how do you write epics and then stories? And then how do you write all the documentation and educational material for the product so it will be ready to go to market, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All of those things involve many different processes. So we are, and then of course, how do you monitor it at the end? So we are talking about things like project management, and I don't really call them project management usually. I would call them more of road mapping on one hand, and then on the other end, backlog management. So you will have tools that will help you with the roadmap, and then you go down the level to the tools that will help you manage the backlog that people need to use. And then you have different discovery tools, like whether it is survey tools, or you will have user testing tools, A/B testing tools, etc. You will have some, design tools. So while I will go to the level of wireframing and prototyping, not so much to the actual design, because hopefully you will have a designer that will do that. But I will definitely, as a product manager, dirty my hands with the wireframing myself, even without, with the collaboration, of course, of the designer. But not everyone has designers on hand. So it's a good idea to do that as well. And then I would also, of course, data analytics. So all the way to monitor the success of your product. So how do you monitor, your KPIs? How do you monitor where people are stuck, when they're not stuck? So different data analytics collections and session replays and a lot of things in that area of understanding how your product is doing. I probably missed a few items over there because there is a lot, to cover.
There is so much, isn't there? And one of the things that kind of jumps out at me, like as you're talking about that, is when you're assessing the tools that you need for each stage, I guess, of or part of product management that you do, whether it's discovery or delivery or analysis or whatever. And you mentioned there about kind of like thinking about the tool with your product hat on, of like, what are the user cases, like, and assessing it very much from like, what's the problem you're trying to solve, or like, what's the user need, and taking that sort of approach. But then also I find these days when you talk to companies, analytics tools, road mapping tools, anything, the general like way that they do their sales is quite a lengthy sort of process to go through that with you as well, where they'll assess like what your needs are and then where the fit is and like how their product can provide support. And my point really is it's a really long process. So I don't know if you find that people have to like assess multiple tools at the same time, but just assessing one kind of tool need like analytics can take a really long time.
I think it really depends. And that's what I try to put also in the Product Manager Toolkit process that I put together. And this is available for everyone. I have a board on the Miraverse, so you can share the link in the notes of the podcast. But the idea over there is that you're right. I mean, testing is part of that, but it's more towards the end. If I may, the process itself that I put over there is you identify your problem and then you prioritize, what are the things in that problem space are more important for you to solve at the moment and what is less important. So like anything else, you need to prioritize things. Then you want to short list your solutions for that. And shortlisting the solution is important also because there's so many of them, like you mentioned, and I mentioned earlier how there are too many products these days, probably. then there is some comparison, and I have a whole table, and we can talk about, what are some of the criteria that I put in there based on everything I found through the podcast. But after you compare them, then there is a testing period. And the testing period, especially these days, and I think that these days we're much more, we are luckier to have product PLG, product-led growth methods, etc. But even when and I will mention a few names, not that I'm endorsing any of those products, but these are some products I used in the past. When I was looking for data analytics, I was looking at Pando at the time, and I used Google Analytics at the time, and I think I looked at a couple of others. But actually, I came to that not from data analytics, but from more, I need access to my users, and they had all in-app messaging that I could actually ask users to connect with me while they're using the product. That was the main reason why I looked into that. But they provided me with a month free to test, and I used that month to integrate into my system and to do some testing. Actually, it wasn't enough, and I asked them for extension, and they gave me another month's extension. So they were actually and I like them also because of that. So part of liking a product is not necessarily just what it does for you, but also the company behind it and their support, etc. And it's one of the criteria for comparison that I put in there. But the testing actually, I don't think needs to take months and months and months. I think if it does take months and months and months, it's probably something is wrong either in our organization that moves slowly and we need consensus from everyone, or something is wrong with the product that we're trying to test. I think that the value that we need to get from the product, we should get it quite fast. There are some products that it might be harder to get it in a day or two. That's why they gave me at the time 1 month free, because you need to collect data in order to see the value of the data, right? But this is also why some products give you a free tier, and with a free tier, you have all the time in the world to try it. Maybe it's a bad thing because that open up the process to a longer period of time. But I encourage people to time box it and not take all the time in the world, right? To do that.
Makes a lot of sense. So you mentioned there about like the comparison. I should probably go through this in order, but I'm just going to call out the comparison section because I feel like that's the bit that we probably all jump to quite quickly as well. And that support is something that you should compare on. It's usually quite hard to get an idea of how good a company's support is going to be. Do you have any tips for that? And are there any other things aside from support that it's worth us calling out on the podcast here?
Yeah, absolutely. The main thing to call out is the comparison is not about features, and it's really about other things. And features, I have in my selection criteria, I don't know, maybe 10 or 12 comparison items, and comparing features is the last one. Not that it's not important, but it's because that's the one main thing that people are doing. Especially if there are RFPs and stuff like that, they will, put a list of features and say, do you have this? You don't have that, and etc. And it's also because marketing website, I don't believe marketing website much. When I'm saying marketing website, I mean those websites that the companies are putting to the public to market their product. They will have a marketing list. I call it a marketing list of features that they have over there because that's what their marketing people are saying that they're selling. And it's very limited to what they can put in there. Language can be different from what I understand it. Comparing them across different products could be quite different. And then they may not work exactly the way that they say they're supposed to work, or in the context of my environment, they may not work the same way. So to me, it's actually the least important thing to check. Customer support is one of them, and it's definitely important, but there are many other items in there that I have on the list. For example, things like how deep this product is going or how wide it's going. Some companies prefer to have solutions for one problem, and it goes very deeply. And then for each problem in the process, they take other products, but then they have to integrate them somehow. Other people prefer to have one wide product that will solve everything in one place, and they just have to deal with one product. And usually that's the case, that many of those products don't go as deep as some other products. So it's a matter of preference, really. I don't say that one is better than the other. I have my own preference and I know what it is, but I've seen and I talk with many people that their preference is the opposite. And then the question, what is a preference for your organization? The other criteria similar to that is how open-ended is product versus how deterministic. So some products will be quite open-ended, like Jira is an open-ended product because it will have the workflows. It will come with some very basic suggestion for a workflow, but then most companies will change that workflow to whatever fits their process. And most companies I've seen make it too complex sometimes, and then it's hard for them to actually implement it. And other products, I think I used in the past Pivotal Tracker, and it was very deterministic. It told me you have to do it this way. That's how you have to do. And again, there is no right or wrong. I think that some people like it when a product is deterministic. So it will tell them just do it this way. And that's our recommendation. And therefore you should do it that way. And some people prefer the flexibility of designing it their own way if they know what they're doing and if it will be successfully implemented, right? So there are things like that. There is other things like, is it entry level or not? So like, to me, Google Analytics is a very, very, very entry-level product, and it's not a suitable product for product managers and product management perspective. But, everyone is using it everywhere, so why not, right? So it's a bit of an entry level. If you really want to mature into a better organization that does it in a better way, you probably want to look into other products like Amplitude or Pendo or the likes, right? Another one that is really important for me is how much the time that my developers have to be involved with this product. If the developers are heavily involved in the product on an ongoing basis, that's one criteria. But if it's like they just integrate it with my product and they go and I don't need to bother them and I can do everything on my own over there, that's another thing. So, each one of those has pros and cons, right? So these are just examples of the full list is in the Miro board. And your question about the support, how do you know about the support? That's exactly where your test period that we talked about before need to involve also reaching out to the support, even if you don't have any questions. So you want to make sure you try the product. And as you try the product, you will have problems of things that you are not sure about, et cetera, et cetera. This is your opportunity to see what information they have in there that is available for you. How reactive are they to your request? How fast they come back to you? Does it make even sense? How personal is it? Et cetera, et cetera.
Your process has 5 specific sections to it, and we've covered some of them already. You start with identifying the problem and prioritize, then shortlist a couple, compare them, testing, which we'll talk about in a moment, and then finally implementation, which I think it's brilliant that you don't leave that out. But testing, I'm curious, you've just touched on it. How long should this phase take realistically? Because, an entire product process, you could say it's going to take us a quarter or more to really see all the phases of our process. And you don't necessarily want to take that long. What's realistic?
Yeah, it's a good question. From my experience, I would like to say that it should not really take more than a month or two, but it really depends on a few things. It depends on the problem you're trying to solve, and it depends on the communication and collaboration within your organization to actually test it properly and make a decision forward. And I might be a bit naive as well, or it's because of my experience with smaller organizations, but with larger organization, it could take longer than that. So I'm not saying that, it is a right number for every organization. Now, you raise something interesting related to your product cycle and how you can actually see results with these products based on your product cycle. So it's an interesting point. because I'm not sure the two has to be coupled together necessarily. It might be for some things, like I mentioned before, if you don't have enough data to collect in the product to test your product analytics, then of course it's hard to test it. And there are other examples like that. If you don't have enough users to do A/B testing, you can't really do A/B testing, right? And how long do you really need to run a test in order to get your results so you can actually analyze it and see that this product works for you? So there are definitely challenges. And unfortunately, like everything, it always depends on which products we have, what is the cycle of our products, in the market, how many users we have, et cetera, et cetera. So that might be the only thing that I would say would do couple it with testing those products. But in general, if you put the right focus on, solving your problem, a specific problem you were trying to solve, and coming up with, use cases for testing, both happy path and things that will go wrong, and for different people in your organization. So you're not the only one that come up with ideas, but there are other people that in a similar position or adjacent positions. I would say that, a month or two for some products should be definitely more than enough.
Moshe, the last section you've got is implementation. And we all know about go-to-market and implementation is important, but I love the fact that you've included it in here. Why is it so important to have it as a core part of the process?
Maybe it was obvious to me, but I've seen so many projects of failed product implementations that it's like, it has to be part of that. I've seen it from both the side of being, engineer and CTO and, from software development companies that we're trying to implement very complex products at our client side, and how much time and money they put into it. And at the end, it was declared, a failure. I've seen it in choosing products that were implemented in silos and other people did not buy into them, etc. So the implementation is really part of what does it make it to be successful, to not just choose the right product, but also get people to adopt it. There is a bit of heavy lifting when you choose the product and test the product and stuff like that. And many times you will learn a lot about how to use it, and the team that is doing that will learn a lot about it. But then the question is now everyone going to come to you whenever they need to use a product because you're the expert on it? Or can you actually make it available for everyone that needs to use it so it's successful across the company and not just for you? And all of those are questions of implementation.
Yeah, I've definitely myself experienced not ideal implementation of product tools, and then you're just sort of wasting money basically when you're paying for something that isn't really providing support to the team. But one of the things that I'd love to know, because you are very obviously dialed into this with lots of companies, what's kind of changed over the years? We mentioned about how there's a lot more choice now. But what's changed in the stack that you see people using? And what do you think is kind of exciting about the future of tools for product people?
Yeah, so we probably will have to talk about AI, but but I think the one thing that I've seen coming across over the years is that the big companies that want to be even bigger, they always add more features that are adjacent, so they become wider in their solutions. So they start with one problem and solve that problem, and then they either develop on their own additional things, or they acquire other companies and become this bigger organization that solves all of these problems. Some of them even try to market it as like the one tool that solves it all. Interesting enough, there is also open source in product tools. PostHog is the one I know about, which is but it was developed for developers and by developers. So it's an interesting beast over there. I've heard a lot of good things about it. I never had the chance to try it myself. And traditionally, open source is more for engineering products rather than other people around it, right? But it's an interesting that it came about as a product tool. And then, of course, the AI. So on the AI end of things, I think there is a lot of things going on there. I think that good things and not so good things. I'm in general, and I'm not afraid to say it, I'm more of, I don't like AI so much, but there is things that I really like about it in AI, and there are things that I just don't like about in AI. And it's not that I don't like it, more as don't trust it yet. And I also feel that some people are using it in ways that to basically more as laziness than as in help, or as in like reduce the work or stuff like that. Now, it could be that I'm wrong about that. I might be too pessimistic about it. But in general, there are definitely areas that AI can help in the tools for product people. And I've used it myself, and it's not that I'm not touching it myself. I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm getting my hands dirty as well.
I imagine there's probably a lot of people who are using things like ChatGPT to ask, what are the tools that I should be using? Like, which is better, this one or this one? But
yeah, it's a really good question to ask, actually. And I did it myself recently. And there is a good, and that's actually, some of it might make my Miro board a bit obsolete, because if you can ask, and give much more information, it could give you, look at these tools. I would see it more maybe as for the shortlisting, because you still need to understand what's your problem specifically and what your priorities, even if you are asking ChatGPT or the likes, because you need to give it a prompt, and the prompt should have this context. So whatever the context is, really the problem you're trying to solve in your organization. And for that, you need to understand your organization. You need to understand what they're doing, how you're doing things. And you need to understand how you prioritize and what's important to you right now. So for the shortlisting, I would say, yeah, that's a good tool to do shortlisting. But then after that, it's not a good tool to test it for you, definitely. And it's not a good tool to, and maybe to compare, if you give it all of those criteria to compare, and it's knowing the context of your organization.
yeah,
So I would doubt.
a lot of limitations there.
Yeah.
One of the other things I think is really interesting about tools as well is I feel like it can be like a real selling point for your business if you use quite a modern stack. So if you're, in a business which is stuck without using like the latest, or not even the latest, but the kind of market leading stack, like, is there anything you can do to sort of just expand your knowledge of what the different tools do, and just make sure that you're not getting left behind from your own sort of career development point of view?
It could be. I'm not sure. I never thought about it this way. One of the criteria that I have is actually more about when I choose the tools and the company behind the tools, what is their product processes and how they are aligned to how we think about product. And are they product led, or are they sales led, or are they technology led, et cetera, right? So I look at it that way. Now, for us to use the right tools and promote it in the world, we're using these stacks versus therefore we are better than others. It's an interesting thought. I don't know if it really impacts others. At the end of the day, and I always told it to my teams, it's not about the tools. The tools are not the one that do the work. It's about you that do the work. And it doesn't matter which tool. If you don't know how to do the work, no tool is going to help you with that. I had team members asking me, I need this tool, otherwise I cannot do my work. And I'm like, you know what? You could do your work if you find ways to do that, around those tools. If you cannot, then of course there are, areas that there are, like data analytics is so much better and easier with the tools that you just, integrate with your product, and it starts collecting the data, and you don't have to develop all of that stuff. But there are ways to do that. It's just it's much harder, right? If you don't have those tools. So whether we use, the latest and greatest in our stack or not, I'm not sure. Maybe that's an interesting question to ask prospective clients and see what do they think.
So I was going to ask you a quick question along those lines, but there's a build on it I really want to go towards. So I know that a good tool or tools will not make a bad team good by itself. bad tools can get in the way of a good team and make it harder for them to perform. Totally get that. But when you're making the case internally for budget for these tools, how do you calculate the ROI? How have you seen that done well and know that you're really getting the value for the tools that you're using?
Right. Yeah, that's a great question. Some of it is, and that's, I think, where the AI are trying to get their hands on, is time saving for the team and reducing the time to market. So it's more efficiency. So the more efficient you are, the less it will cost you to build whatever it is that you're building, right? But not every tool will help you with that specifically. Some of it is about really getting into the right problem and right solution. So for example, when you look into roadmaps, and some of the roadmaps include features like external roadmaps that people can upvote or downvote or things like that, that's actually is a place where you expand on your discovery efforts. And then the question is, how do you budget each one of those areas of your lifecycle? And how do you do the ROI on each area of this lifecycle of discovery specifically and stuff like that, which I think is a bigger question. I, for one, never had to break it down that way. And now that I'm bringing it up, I'm like, maybe I should have. I'm not sure, if anyone is doing it that way or not. But in general, I would say that the return on investment is quantifiable, where you can actually put actual dollar value for outcomes that you're creating with that. So whatever outcomes that are possible to happen because you found something that you didn't know before, you learned something you didn't know before, and you put it into that, the communication of your team has been improved because of that, the collaboration, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not saying it's easy to quantify, but that's the direction that I would go.
I always find it's much harder to have that ROI conversation after the tool's been kind of embedded into the team and the workflow and everything. If it's something new, like an A/B testing tool or something like that, and you didn't have that before, or like a new user research thing, it's just so much easier to kind of demonstrate there where it's made the impact of it.
But I actually had to replace a tool that we chose. We were happy with the tool, but it was just too expensive to continue using it based on the ROI that we evaluated at the time. And we chose another tool that was not as sophisticated and was not up. It was doing similar things. It was newer on the market, and therefore the price was much lower. And I was able to work with it. So I compromised in order to be able to still get what I needed to get as much as I can with some limitations. So I had some workarounds, but the price was much cheaper. And sometimes these discussions happen. It usually happen after the fact, and when you have to renew your product, and then you have to justify, the renewal for the same price or increased price. That happens as well.
Moshe, I'm afraid that we're out of time today to continue the conversation, but this is one of those conversations that, we're product people. We could talk about this forever. So I'm going to put a plea out to anyone listening. If you've got a take on this, if you've got favorite tools, if you've got a way of calculating ROI or getting budget for tools, tag us on LinkedIn. Let's keep this conversation going. We'd love to be part of it.
Yes, thank you. I would love to hear that as well, specifically on the ROI question. And if anyone has any tools that they are using and we didn't cover yet in the podcast, or they want to be on the podcast, suggest a topic specifically about tools, we are also covering, tools that are outside of the, physical, it's not really physical, but an actual software. So things like frameworks and books. We talk with a lot of authors that wrote books for product people. Even we talked about a few mindsets. So all of these are really tools at the end of the day.
Amazing, Moshe. I'm sure people will be taking you up on that offer. And thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
The Product Experience hosts are me, Lily Smith, host by night and Chief Product Officer by day.
And me, Randy Silver, also host by night. And I spend my days working with product and leadership teams, helping their teams to do amazing work.
Luron Pratt is our producer, and Luke Smith is our editor.
And our theme music is from product community legend Arnie Kittler's band, POW. Thanks to them for letting us use their track.